Welcome to Vital Records, the monthly genealogy tip series.
November is National Native American Heritage Month, otherwise known as American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month. In celebration, I want to talk about researching Native American genealogy. First, I want to acknowledge that here in Gwinnett County, the land that we live on today was once the home of the Muskogee or Creek and the Cherokee. These people were forcibly removed from this land through manipulation, physical force, and even in direct violation of federal laws. Today, 3 Muskogee and Cherokee tribes are recognized by the state of Georgia and maintain their traditions in the state. I also want to note that I am not going to be talking about establishing ancestry to become a certified member of a Native American tribe for the purpose of membership or enrollment. I'm not qualified to speak to this. Instead, I recommend that you check out the U.S. Department of Interior Bureau of Indian Affairs website for more information, as well as the websites of the tribe to which your ancestor belonged. What I am going to talk about are general resources that will help you get started researching your Native American ancestors, as well as some pitfalls to be aware of along the way. Most American families, mine included, with ancestors who have been in the country since the 1800s, have family stories about a great-grandmother who was a Cherokee princess. Honestly, though, most of these stories are wrong. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have a Native American ancestor, just that these oral traditions are more often incorrect than not, either entirely or in the specifics. And it's important that when conducting genealogy research that we're respectful of our ancestors and our country's history. So let's get it right. If you don't already have documentation proving Native ancestry, but only have a vague family story to go on, you should be prepared to find out that the story was incorrect. But again, that doesn't mean that you don't have Native American ancestors. According to a study conducted by Georgia Tech, quote, if your ancestor in the United States stretches back more than 250 years, you may have Native American forebears. They said that for, quote, African Americans, it correlates to about 8 or 9 generations back and probably ends there. And that for those with Western European ancestors, about 8 to 10 generations ago, and the contact with Native Americans could have been more continuous. This study really emphasizes the fact that your potential Native American ancestors were likely born 250 years ago, in the 1700s or even 1600s, and were likely not otherwise your unnamed great-grandmother like you've always heard. It's really easy for incorrect information to be passed from one generation to the next, unintentionally or even on purpose. For example, the princess was a common term of endearment from a husband to wife that could have been taken literally by later generations. Instead of Cherokee, your ancestors might be Chickasaw or Catawba. Perhaps your ancestor was actually African American and claimed Native ancestry as a safer path. Maybe it's not your great-grandmother who is Native American, but your great-grandmother's great-grandmother. And it's also possible that a white ancestor was claiming Native heritage to take advantage of a financial benefit being offered at the time. There's no way to know until you begin your research and your documentation. Now that all the caveats are out of the way, let's look at some resources that might help you identify your unknown Native American ancestor or find more records about the ancestors that you do already know about. Many of the resources that I'm highlighting will focus on Native Americans of the southeastern United States. I'll have links to the resources in the description box. Many records on Native Americans were created by the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs and are preserved by the National Archives. They are available either online or through in-person research. Online records can be found all over the internet, but you might try starting with record collections at some of the larger organizations: U.S. National Archives, Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, and if you know or have an idea of the tribe of your ancestor, the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums. All of these sources have collections of Native American records that you can look through, many more than I can talk about today. Here are a few key strategies and resources that I'm going to highlight. Start by searching the standard records that you would use for any kind of genealogy research: census records, vital records such as birth and death certificates, and military records. If this individual identifies as a Native American, this fact should be reflected on these records. Little other information is likely to be included on these records, however, which would help you identify a tribe. More research will be needed. Note: Native Americans were not counted in the decennial federal census until 1860, and even then, only those not affiliated with a tribe were counted. However, many state census records did count Native Americans. By the 1900s, most Native Americans were counted in the federal census. So the absence of an ancestor in early records could potentially be an indicator that they were Native American. Like any other aspect of genealogy, you do want to look for multiple documents showing your ancestor as a Native American to truly prove their Native ancestry. Next, look at record collections that were designed specifically to record the lives of Native Americans. Knowing where your ancestors lived and which tribes also lived in those areas will help guide your research at this stage. For more information on finding out which Native American tribes lived where you live today or where your ancestors lived, visit the website Native Land Digital at native-land.ca. Again, I'm focusing on tribes from the southeastern U.S. As you expand your search, you might start with U.S. Indian Census Rolls 1885 to 1940, available on Ancestry.com Library Edition. Remember, you can access Ancestry.com Library Edition free at the library. These census records were not taken as routinely as the U.S. federal census and do not exist for all tribes. The information varies over the years and between locations, but they can be very helpful if your ancestor was enumerated. These records will provide information on the tribe that your ancestor belonged to, and you can then begin more specific research on their history. Another great resource are enrollment records, such as the Dawes census cards for the 5 civilized tribes and the Cherokee Baker Roll and Records. These are available through Ancestry Library Edition. These records record the names of those who had approved membership in the tribes and those whose applications were rejected. These enrollment records provide a variety of information that can help identify your ancestor and separate them from others with the same name. Information that you might find includes birth dates and places, names of relatives, notes about other records filed, and the decisions made about their membership in the tribes. The Eastern Cherokee Applications, 1906 to 1909, is a record collection available on Family Search and accessible through the library as an affiliate library. These records are taken from the Ginn Miller rolls and contain a lot of information about the ancestor applying for membership with the Eastern Cherokee. Again, these records provide a variety of information that can help identify your ancestor, including birth dates and places and relatives. Next, allotment records. Allotment records record land allotted to Native Americans as individuals in an effort to dissolve tribal governments. These records are available through the National Archives, and some are online at Ancestry and Family Search. An example is the Oklahoma and Indian Territory U.S. Land Allotment Jackets for 5 civilized tribes. Records include original application, questionnaires answered by the applicants, plat maps, and more. Now, apart from recorded historical records, you might also be thinking about using DNA to locate Native American ancestors. This method could really use a video all on its own. Suffice to say that if your Native ancestors intermarried with other ethnicities hundreds of years ago, their DNA might be diluted and may no longer be evident through a DNA test. I suggest focusing on the paper trail. There are so many different resources available to research your Native American ancestors, and I've touched on a scarce few. Hopefully you'll find them helpful. I definitely recommend that you check out collections available through the National Archives, various genealogy companies, and through Native American organizations. If you have any questions about accessing Ancestry.com Library Edition or Family Search, please contact the Customer Contact Center or visit your local branch. See you next month.